Hello, guys and dolls. Welcome back to my podcast, Conversations with Zelia, with your hostess, Zelia Lorraine. Today is Wednesday, September 11th, 2024, and before we start our podcast episode, I want to pay a brief tribute to two legendary people that passed on this week: James Earl Jones and Frankie Beverly of Maze. May they both rest in peace, and may people remember their contributions to cinema and R&B and music. I also want to pretty much say rest in peace to those that passed on the tragic day of September 11th. May they rest in peace, and may we never forget that horrid day. Now, let's get into our intro. In today's episode, I'm reviewing the Blindspotting episode, Ghost Dad, which was the 6th episode of Season 1. Now, for those living on a rock do not know what Blindspotting is, Blindspotting is a TV series on Star that lasted 2 seasons, which was based on the 2018 film Blindspotting, starring DaveedDiggs and Rafael Casal as a friend duo navigating a gentrified Oakland. And to give you a little brief plot of the movie, pretty much to sum up the two characters, Raphael is the buck wild friend whose anger always gets his friends in trouble. Then Miles is the straight man that tries to pretty much wrangle Miles, and all of this and Miles' anger all culminates in the Scorpion Bull fight, where Miles started a fight with a white dude at a bar that Colin was working as a bouncer at because over a Scorpion Bull. But Colin wound up joining in the fight, which led to Colin's going to jail, but not Miles, which will be very important in this review because. And then the Blindspotting TV series, focuses on Miles' girlfriend, Ashley, portrayed by Jasmine Cephas-Jones, who's also a Hamilton alumni. And pretty much, the whole premise of Blindspotting is when Miles goes to jail for drug charges, for possessing drugs, Ashley and her son Sean has to move in with his hippie mother Rainey, and her Miles' baby sister not Trish, who works at a adult club, while also rekindling her friendship with Janelle, Colin's sister, who's mentioned in the first movie, who winds up developing a budding friendship with Earl, a man that's paroled to Nancy's house. And Earl was my favorite character series. Now, for Earl's backstory, Earl, who come from a good home with his dad being a restaurant owner, was jailed on weed charges, and he's pretty much paroled to either Nancy's house or the neighborhood. And the whole, which leads I'm wearing I forgot what they call it, an ankle monitor. Now, the episode I'm going to recap in review is the episode Ghost Dad, where pretty much it's the episode where Ashley tells Sean that Miles is in jail, and Nancy fears that Sean may be out of touch with his blackness. Now, considering the fact I'm recapping the entire episode by memory, there will be spoilers, so if you haven't watched the show nor the movie, I recommend that you watch the show. But let's get straight into it. The episode begins with, and for clarity, I'm going to discuss Sean's storyline first, then Ashley's storyline second, just for clarity. Or for so people don't get confused, but the A storyline, or should I say B storyline, this B storyline with Sean begins with Nancy babysitting Sean while Ashley's at work, and Miss Nancy wants to show Sean the Wiz, but Sean wants to watch Paddington, which lead her believing that Sean may be out of touch with his blackness, thanks to Sean being mixed. Namely Sean having a black mom who may or may not be mixed, because I never watched the second season, and they never go into detail regarding the racial heritage of Ashley's parents and a white father. And she becomes even more concerned when Sean refers to himself as Honey Brown in regards to his skin complexion, and she pretty much brings this concerns to Sean and Janelle, and this is where everything started getting more confusing, or things go awry. When Nancy brings up how Sean didn't want to watch The Wiz, this leads to a discussion regarding black movies, namely how black movies in the past were directed by white movie directors, since The Wiz was directed by the legendary late Sidney Lumet. And Earl pretty much brings up that Nancy should show Sean the 5 Heartbeats and The Meteor Man, both of them were directed by Robert Townsend. And they pretty much start giving Robert Townsend his flowers and all. And then this is when the conversation jumps to blackness. While Nancy, Janelle, and Earl are playing cards, they try to test Sean's blackness, whether or not he's familiar with certain card playing tricks, or whether or not he can tolerate spicy foods, which that's, in my opinion, an idiotic way to pretty much test someone's blackness, but I digress. I'll get to it when I discuss my final thoughts. Then Trish winds up visiting them, and they wind up having a discussion regarding Sean. And Trish, in my opinion, when discussing Earl's background, Trish, in my opinion, kind of has a ignorant view of blackness. Namely, she viewed Earl pre-divorce Earl as not black because he grew up in a good home, had 2 parents, and both his parents were restaurateurs, but when he got arrested, he's considered quote-unquote black. Pretty much, it's the way words. In her logic, Miles is considered black due to him being a jailbird and pretty much getting in trouble a lot and having tattoos in it and stuff. And it led to a conversation about colorism, with Janelle stating how Janelle, who's also the darker complected the darker complected out of all the main characters, which I'll discuss later on, stated how when she and Ashley were in school, Ashley was considered prettier due to her skin complexion, while her Afro post was considered ugly. And Earl brought up a point how, I forgot the point he brought up, in which he compared Trish to Doja Cat, in which he brought up how lighter skin slash mixed race lighter skin monoracial or mixed race people, they have a better, their black experience is different than monoracial black people or darker skinned black people, which he is correct about. And the B plot concludes with Janelle, Earl, and Sean watching Marmalade, and Earl not Marmalade, Paddington, and Earl considering Paddington a black movie since he can relate to the title character due to him not liking Marmalade. Then when Ashley, who's been out with talking to the imaginary version of Miles, picks up Sean and asks Sean if he watched what, in which asked Ashley if Sean has watched Wiz, and she stated, and in my favorite, she states the Michael Jackson Wizard of Oz, in which Sean said yes, confirming that Sean has watched Wiz. Now, for those living on the rock, for those of certain age do not know what The Wiz is, The Wiz was a 1978 movie adaptation of the Broadway musical The Wiz, starring Diana Ross, Michael Jackson, Nipsey Russell, and I forgot the name of the dude that played the Cowardly Lion. And it's pretty much an updated African American version of The Wizard of Oz. And initially, the movie flopped at the box office. The movie's flop regarded to as the movie that pretty much killed black movies being seen as profitable up until Coming to America in 1988. But nowadays, it's now a cult classic and pretty much been romanticized as a cult classic, as it should. And the fact that she mentioned Michael Jackson instead of Diana Ross regards to Wiz just goes to show you how Michael carried that movie and is the one thing people remember that movie for. And I wish Michael would do more movies. Rest in peace. And speaking of Ashley's whole storyline is pretty much pretty much getting the courage to tell Sean about his father's whereabouts. And her boy Scotty, played by Andrew, I forgot his last name, Andrew, who's also another Hamilton alumni. I should know that there are a lot of Hamilton stars that starred and that made appearances in Blindspotting, with not only Scotty, but Colin, who's also the creator and executive of the show, and Anthony Ramos, who was in like 2 episodes. And actually, she takes on a hike to the woods where she meets up with an imaginary version of Miles. And they were very have a discussion regarding telling Sean the truth and bring it up. And also, Miles bringing up how her abusive dad tried to visit Ashley when she was giving birth to Sean, which led them having a restraining order against him. It is real during this whole conversation that Ashley played a part that Ashley played a part in Miles going to jail, namely Ashley. The drugs that Miles was found with belonged to Ashley. He belonged to Ashley, which gets elaborated the second season, which I haven't watched. And after conversating with parting with Imaginary Miles, Ashley goes home to takes Sean home, where she pretty much tells Sean that his dad's in jail, and reads Sean a book about a children's book about incarcerated parents, in which Sean and the symbolism dancers are shown reading, with the dancers. I should note each episode of in almost every episode of Blindspotting, there's dancers pretty much dancing in symbolism in regards to certain things. And the dancers who are wearing prison clothes, they symbolize prisoners who are unable to see, who struggle with seeing their families in prison. So that's it for my recap. And let's get into my final thoughts. The episode did not do a great job with its message in regards to blackness and colorism, concerning the fact it was written by a black woman. Like, the way they tackle an execution was all over the place. It makes it even more confusing. But let's discuss the 2 points of this episode. Like, for example, Nancy fears that Sean is detached from his blackness because he refers to his skin color as honey. He identifies as honey brown, and that he can't tolerate spicy foods. If you watch certain black movies, among other things, and then Trish, she has a what I call ignorant view of blackness. Like, you're not black if you don't fit into a stereotype. Because Trish's view of black is pretty much a jailbird with tattoos, and eat hot foods and stuff, which is a very stupid stereotype, stupid view of blackness. There are black people that act different. There are black people that are poor, there are black people that are middle class / and are rich, there are black people who are educated, black people who listen to rock music. I can go on. And I'm not trying to be offensive, but the point is, not every black person is the same or different. We're all different in each other's way, and we should embrace our differences instead of looking down on them. And then the colorism aspect, like, they could have gone in depth with how Janelle was treated as a darker skinned woman in comparison to her friend Ashley. Which, if you really look at it, and I know I'm going to get some Blindspotting fans come at me for this, but the cast of Blindspotting really defeats their purpose discussing colorism, because of that most of the main cast, the writer, most of the black main cast members, aside from Earl and Janelle, are mixed race / light skinned. So how are you going to discuss colorism when you only have like 2 darker skinned cast members? But I digress. But yeah, overall, the only good thing regarding the episode was Ashley telling Sean about Myers being in jail. But other than that, this was not a great episode based on the fact how it handled the discussion of the topic of blackness and colorism. But anyway, guys, I hope you enjoy this podcast episode. In the next podcast episode, the next podcast episode would be a worst listicle on worst mothers and movies and TV, and I hope, which will pretty much count down any the horror mothers on television and movies. But anyways, I hope you enjoyed this podcast episode. Be sure to follow this podcast on platforms where this podcast is available, and follow the social media pages for this podcast listed on the website. I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.